Okay, so the first thing on this, after we open the hood, the first thing we're going to do is do our brake system, and we're going to break everything down. So we start at the top. On our master cylinder, we have two caps. They're there, they're not leaking. The caps sit on top of the reservoir. The reservoir is there, and it's properly full of fluid. If it was not full of fluid, it could hurt how the bus stops. It might not stop if it's out of fluid. So that's what we're checking in the reservoir. Then we have the master cylinder. The master cylinder is there, secure, and it's not leaking. From the master cylinder, we're running the brake lines down, and on the brake lines, we're checking for leaks, or we're checking for any cuts. Going all the way down, you'll follow the brake lines all the way down to the caliper. The caliper is there, and it's secure, and it's not leaking. Inside the caliper, we have brake pads. The pads are the proper thickness, which would be 1/4 of an inch thick, and there's no contamination on the pads. Inside the pads would be the rotor. The rotor is there. It has no cuts, cracks, or grooves in the rotor. It is completely smooth. Coming back up a little ways, we would check the brake booster, and we're checking it for any leaks. That would be the whole brake system. Now we're working our way to the steering system. So we're going to start at the steering boot. The steering boot is there. It's secure. It's not cut. Following the boot down to the steering arm. The steering arm is there. It's not bent, cracked, or loose. Following the arm down, we're going to the steering U-joint. The U-joint is there. It's secure, and it's not worn out. Following the U-joint into the gearbox. The gearbox is there. It is secure, and there is no leaks on that gearbox. From the gearbox, we go to the pitman arm. The pitman arm is there. It is secure, and it's not loose or damaged or bent. Going from the pitman arm, we go to the drag link. The drag link is there. Same keywords, not loose, damaged, or broke. Going from the drag link, we go up to the steering knuckle. The steering knuckle is there, not bent, broke, loose, or damaged. From the knuckle, we go to the spindle. The spindle is there, not bent, broke, damaged, or loose. From there, we go to the tie rod and the tie rod ends, two different pieces. So we have a tie rod end and the tie rod, and they are there, not broke, not damaged, not bent. And from this point, I would say all of the steering components have their castle nuts and their cotter keys. And it's easy to remember castle nuts because we're Farmington Knights, so it should be, we live in castles. So from there, it's important, and the part actually tells you it's important not to forget that we have to check our power steering reservoir, that it has the proper fluid level in it, and we would pull the cap out, the dipstick, and check that fluid level. Because if it was low, we could have a hard time steering the bus. So from there, we're going to follow the power steering lines. Power steering lines go to the power steering pump. The power steering pump is gear driven. That is a key word you have to say on the test. That it is a gear driven pump, and there's no leaks, and the power steering pump is secure. Okay, from there, we're going to check all of our electrical on the bus. And when we do that, I want your arm to sweep over the bus. That way you're saying all electrical is same as all hoses. So on the hoses, we're checking all the hoses to make sure for any leaks, no damage. On the electrical, we're checking for any burnt ends and that they're all plugged up correctly. Okay, from there, we're moving on to the transmission fluid. With the bus running, we'd pull out the dipstick, check the dipstick level to make sure we're in the proper operating range. With the bus off, we'll pull out the oil dipstick and check the fluid level on it and make sure it's in the proper operating range. From this point, we're going to check all the fuel lines going up from the fuel tank to the fuel filter to make sure we have no leaks in the fuel lines. Then we'll check our fuel filter to make sure there's no leaks in the fuel filter and it's good and secure. Then we're going to check our fuel pump to make sure the fuel pump is there. It's good and secure. There's no leaks in the fuel pump. From there, we're going to be working our way to the left. Now we're going to be checking the fan. Make sure all the fan blades are there. They're not damaged or broke. On this side, I'm looking on the back side of the radiator. Now, I'm looking for any debris that could possibly be in there or any types of leaks. From there, I'm checking the fan shroud to make sure the fan shroud is good and secure. It's not broke, not damaged, not missing. Working from the fan shroud to the left, I'm looking at the core support, which would be the radiator core. I'm making sure the core support is there. It's not loose, broke, damaged, or missing. Coming down from the core support, we go to the hood hinge. I'm checking the hood hinge to make sure it's good and secure, it's not loose, and there's a cotter key in that hood hinge. That way the hood cannot fall off. Okay, now working our way back to the right, we're going to be checking our suspension system. So we start with the frame. The frame is there. There's no cracks, illegal welds, or any holes that ain't supposed to be there in this frame. From there, we're going to check our leaf spring hangers, that the leaf spring hangers are there, that the bolts are good and secure, nothing's missing. Think of the leaf spring hangers as hanging a shirt in the closet. That way, you know, we have to put these leaf springs somewhere, so they have to be hung to the frame. Is a good way to, that's how good way to remember it. From the leaf spring hangers down, we have bushings that are in the leaf springs. We have to check the bushings to make sure they're not worn out. From there, we're checking the leaf springs at this point. The leaf springs are there. They're not cracked, broke, damaged, or loose. Moving over to the middle, we're going to be checking our U-bolts to make sure the U-bolts are there, that they have the nuts on the bottom, that they are not broke, damaged, missing, or loose. From there, the U-bolts connect to the front axle. The front axle is there. It's not broke, no illegal welds, no bends in the front axle. Now, looking at the shock on the bus. The shock is there. It's not broke, damaged, or loose. It's good and secure, and we do not see no leaks in the shock. Okay. Now that is everything that we have worked from here out. Now we're working our way to the tire.